All right, Shalom. Shalom, giving all praises, all glory, all honors unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahawashi, by Hashem, Wakakadash. Double honors to the apostles, elder bishops of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the 144,000, the rest of the hopeful elect out there. This is your brother, the preacher, I1 from GMS Atlanta. I'm back with another edifying video. More proof of history of the Israelites, Israelites in history. And this is an article here. This is from NBC News. This is actually goes back to 2012. 2012. So we're talking about 13 years. And this is what it says. It says, Quake reveals day of, it says Jesus here, but we know his true name is Yahawashi. Quake reveals day of Yahawashi's crucifixion, researchers believe. So it says Yahawashi, as described in the New Testament, was most likely crucified on Friday, April 3rd, which there was no Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday back in the ancient world. So disregard the date. You know, they try to get their dates to coincide with, Christianity and the Gregorian calendar. If the Messiah died on Friday, Sunday is not the day of resurrection. You have to count 24 hours. It said he rose after 3 days. So he would have to be buried by sundown on the cross. We got Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Because according to Israelite law, when someone was hanged, you didn't allow their body to stay hanging up. Okay, you had to bury them the same day after they died. So Christians are fools when it comes to the scriptures. So disregard this date. We're going to deal with the point here, and that's dealing with the earthquake. It says they based their conclusion on a review of seismic activity. So let me just get into the article and disregard these whitewash images. We know that the Israelites and the Messiah himself were dark-skinned brown people. So let me just read this. I'm disregarding this date information because it's BS. So it says, the latest investigation reported in International Geology Review focused on earthquake activity at the Dead Sea, located 13 miles from Jerusalem. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27, mentions that an earthquake coincided with the crucifixion. And when Yahawashi had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rock split, and the tombs were broke open. So let's go into the scriptures. Let's go to Matthew 27. Because people like to say that, the Bible's fake, the Bible's not real. And that's why I do these videos, showing points of proof that the Israelites existed. The Bible's a true book. All right? And there's historical facts to prove that point. So this is the book of Matthew, chapter 27. And I'm going to get straight to the point here. So if you want to get the backstory, then you can read the Gospels yourself. So I'm going to jump down to Matthew chapter 27 and 45. It says, now from the 6th hour, there was darkness all over the land until the 9th hour. Now, by the way, the 6th hour of the day which is the first hour of the day. That's 6 a.m. So you got 7 a.m., 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 until the ninth hour. So that's from 12 noon to 3 p.m. Matthew 27 and 45 again. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the ninth hour. So this is how you teach the scriptures. This is how you get deep. This is how you get proper understanding. You look things up. You line the information that you been given, and you see that it lines up with scriptures. It lines up with science. It lines up with what could occur, especially in this case of the crucifixion of Yahawashi, and you see that the Bible is true. So now let's read verse 46, and I'm going to get to the point. It says, in about the ninth hour, which once again, that would be around 3 in the afternoon, Yahawashi cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, that is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Which in the Hebrew, it would be Allah Yah, Allah being God, Yah meaning my God or my power. So it says, some of them that stood there, when they heard that, said, this man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and gave him to drink. The rest said, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him. And these are niggas, by the way. These are black people saying this, so you can understand. Our people were the ones mocking the Lord when he was on the cross. Not these pale small hats. Pale-faced small hat wearers that's in the land today. Yahawashi, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain, which is two, split in half, from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. So let's deal with this. Let's get to the nitty-gritty of the lesson. I'm going to read that again. Matthew 27 and 51. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in two from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. So now what they've been saying, and this goes back, like I said, 2012, that there was an earthquake during the time of Yahawashi's crucifixion. So let's read this here. It says to analyze, and this is from NBC News. All right. It says to analyze earthquake activity in the region, geologist Jefferson Williams of Supersonic Geophysical and colleagues Marcus Schwab and Achim Brauer of the German Research Center for Geosciences studied 3 cores from the beach of the Engedi Spa adjacent to the Dead Sea. Varves, which are annual layers of deposition in the sediments, revealed that at least 2 major earthquakes affected the core. A widespread earthquake in 31 BC and a seismic event that happened sometime between the years 26 and 36. The latter period occurred during the years when Pontius Pilate was procurator of Judea, and when the earthquake of the Gospel of Matthew is historically constrained. So in that time frame, William said. The day and the date of the crucifixion are known with a fair degree of precision, which, like I said, they're going off on that date, on that Friday. All right. There was no Friday, Saturday, or Sunday in the ancient world. There wasn't no Monday. That wasn't even a day invented on the calendar back then, especially during the time in Jerusalem. Let's see here. So it says, in terms of textual clues to the date of the crucifixion, Williams quoted a Nature paper authored by Colin Humphreys and Graham Waddington. Williams summarized their works as follows. All 4 Gospels and Tacitus, So here's your extra historical sources. Tacitus in Annals 1544 agreed that the crucifixion occurred when Pontius Pilate was procurator of Judea from AD 26 to 36. All four Gospels say the crucifixion, no, it didn't occur on Friday. It occurred during the time of the Passover, which I just proved to you that it would be the 15th day, where a lunar eclipse would occur, because the lunar eclipse would have to be a full moon. Full moon is also the time of the Passover, because it's the middle of the month. The middle of the month is a full moon. The beginning of a month is a dark moon, which is a new moon. So everything lines up. It says all four Gospels agree that Yahawashi died a few hours from the beginning of the Israelite Sabbath, right? Israelite Sabbath. Okay? Not dealing with that Friday stuff. The Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, indicate that Yahawashi died before nightfall on the 14th day of Nisan, right before the start of the Passover meal. It doesn't say that. I don't know where they're getting that from. Let's get into the scriptures. They already ate the Passover. It says John's gospel differs from the synoptics, apparently indicating that Yahawashi died before nightfall on the 15th day of Nisan. Let's go to the scriptures, where we will eat the Passover. Unless I'm missing something here. Yeah, Mark chapter 14 and 12. Right, the last Passover. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover. Remember, the Passover's already been killed. The lamb has been killed. His disciples said unto him, where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? And we know the story of the gospel. Verse 16, and his disciples went forth and came into the city and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover. Verse 17, and in the evening he cometh with the 12. You had to have the Passover. Let's read it. Let's go to Exodus, the 12th chapter. And then I'm going to come back. This is why we really only deal with scholars. We don't do no debates. We tell you exactly what the scriptures say and with the 100% truth here at GMS. Exodus 12 and 6. Right? And this is dealing with the Passover lamb. Exodus 12 and 6. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. Right? So going before the Sabbath comes in, you kill the lamb. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorposts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, right, that evening, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. So they have to go off because, see, they're going according to this Friday. No, they ate the Passover already. That night. So they're off with their dates. So let's deal with the earthquake data. It says, in terms of the earthquake data alone, Williams and his team acknowledged that the seismic activity associated with the crucifixion could refer to an earthquake that occurred sometime before or after the crucifixion and was in effect borrowed by the author of the Gospel of Matthew and a local earthquake between 26 and 36 AD that was sufficiently energetic to deform the sediments of En-Gedi, but not energetic enough to produce a still extant and extra-biblical historical record. So pretty much in that time frame, there was an earthquake that happened. They don't get all these dates right, but they can understand time periods. And by judging the ground at that point in that region, they say, yeah, so an earthquake occurred here. Which makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world. It lines up. Now, I went into this here. Now, this is from the information here. This is from TNF online. This is the actual information. The International Geology Review. An early 1st century earthquake in the Dead Sea. All right, this is when they put the information in. Accepted October 31st, 2011. Published online December 23rd, 2011. So it says, abstract. This article examines a report in the 27th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew in the New Testament that an earthquake was felt in Jerusalem on the day of the crucifixion of Yahawashi of Nazareth. We have tabulated a borrowed chronology from a core from En-Gedi on the western shore of the Dead Sea between deformed sediments due to a widespread earthquake in 31 BC and deformed sediments due to an early 1st century earthquake. The early 1st century seismic event has been tentatively assigned a date of 31 AD with an accuracy of plus 5 years. So they had to give it a range. Right? 31, 37 AD. Right? Like I said, these scholars and archaeologists, they don't get these dates correct. And they don't know the scriptures ultimately. But they get certain things right? So it says, plausible candidates include the earthquake reported in the Gospel of Matthew, an earthquake that occurred sometime before or after the crucifixion, which it would have to be after according to the scripture. It was in effect borrowed. No, it wasn't borrowed by the author. The author was there to witness it or to write the story. Okay, the disciples of Yahawashi was there. All right. It says by the author of the Gospel of Matthew, and a local earthquake between 26 and 36 AD that was sufficiently energetic to deform the sediments at En-Gedi, but not energetic enough to produce a still extant and extra biblical historical record. If the last possibility is true, this would mean that the report of an earthquake in the Gospel of Matthew is a type of allegory. But it's not an allegory, it's true. Because they looked at the ground. And you see they have to put what they added in, borrowed, and they got to add these words. But there was an earthquake that they're saying that happened between 26 and 36 AD. So that means whoever wrote these scriptures, which it was Matthew, would had to have some kind of knowledge of that taking place. So you see how the scriptures line up, and even these researchers, they have to admit that these things took place. Now they put their own dates and they put names to certain things, and you have your skeptics. But at the end of the day, the Holy Scriptures ring true. So, back here, Matthew 27. And 50, Yahawashi, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain, from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose. So that means that there were people that literally came out of the graves. Remember, Yahawashi had spiritual power. And they lived full lives. And then they had to die again. He brought them back to life. They came out of the graves. People had their loved ones, raised up. And then, the prophecy, 70 AD came. They either escaped, fled, or they died. Either way they died. Nobody's walking around 2,000 years ago talking about, I was in the grave. And Yahawashi, yeah, man. Yahawashi raised me up. Nah, so they had to die again. But for the miracle that Yahawashi performed, to give him his credence, this is what happened. It says, and came out of the graves after his resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared unto many. Now when the centurion and they that were with him watching Yahawashi saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly. So you're telling me that nobody wrote records or nobody said anything about when this man was crucified, there was an earthquake that took place? It says they feared greatly, saying, truly, this was the Son of the Most High. So although these scientists, they don't know the scriptures and they don't, they're not Bible scholars, but they don't agree on every point. They look, these news reporters and these researchers, they look into these things. They study the scriptures. They see whether or not this took place during this time period. And they say, yep, that happened. They go into the Bible and they say, well, the Bible said this happened. They go and they look it up. Because why would they even looking this up? To see if the Bible was true, and they found out it's true. So, I just wanted to bring this information out. More historical proof of the scriptures. Proof of the Israelites. And prove that the word of Yahawashi is true, pure words. It's on point. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying. Shalom.